So another example was a restaurant. This is kind of a comical one, and if you have spare time, I recommend you go read it. Um, but the clause said basically, listen, we can relocate you. We have to give you reasonably similar space. It was a restaurant, a very famous local restaurant in that area. And, we have the right to relocate you as long as we landlord jump through all these hoops. Um, the landlord's notice, the lease said, had to be accompanied by a plan of the new premises. And it would say, what's the square footage of the new premises? And then the tenant would have to vacate the existing premises and then move to the new premises not later than 15 days after the landlord substantially completed the new premises, substitute premises. Little trick though. It said if you tenant don't relocate, then the landlord can terminate the lease, which is, ouch. That concept is pretty common in leases though. So, but often it says the tenant has the right to terminate the lease. So if we go back to my example of, the bank wants to move on to these sandwich floors, then the little tenant, is occupying 3,000 square feet. Landlord says, we're going to move you. And unfortunately, the tenant did not, take this seminar and negotiate some favorable provisions. So say they were on the 12th floor and the landlord was going to put them in some obscure place on the third floor, no views or views of a brick wall or whatever. Um, that typically the lease will say the tenant can terminate, not that the landlord can terminate. This said the landlord could terminate. So in subsequent lease amendments, the parties acknowledged that the landlord was going to redevelop this shopping center in Darien, Connecticut. And if anyone knows Connecticut, Darien is a very ritzy suburb. And they were going to, tear down some buildings, including the building that the restaurant was currently in, and build some nice new buildings. The landlord sent a relocation notice to the tenant, although the tenant says they never got it. So because they didn't respond to the notice when they were supposed to, the landlord terminated the tenant's lease. The tenant ultimately prevailed in that case because the landlord jumped the gun a little bit. And they sent this notice to the tenant before they had even torn down any buildings or built the new building where their space was going to be. So effectively, what that would have meant is tenant gets the notice, we're relocating you. You have to vacate this existing building, which we're going to tear down within the next days of getting our notice. But your new building's not going to be ready. In this case, it wasn't going to be ready for a couple of years. So effectively, what the landlord was saying is, we're putting you out of business for 2 years, and you just got to hang around and wait until the new building is done. So you see, it's sort of a theme here. If the result of the relocation means that the tenant will not be able to operate for a period of time, or in fact can't operate their business at all, then these relocation clauses are probably not going to be enforced. So that's something, again, depending, if you represent a childcare center, you represent a restaurant, other retail shop, right? You want to make sure that they can operate in this new location, that all the rules pertaining to their operation of their business are not going to be violated if they go to this new space. So the court concludes the defendant, upon receiving a notice of substitution, that's the tenant, would be required to close its business for an indefinite amount of time while the current premises were raised and the new premises were built. And like I said, that was a bridge too far for the court. The court said, no, it's just, not appropriate.